Welcome back to Desk Careers. I am so excited to introduce you to our next guest speaker. We have Robert Najarian, who is an actor and choreographer based in Boston and LA, and he's come to join our Desk Careers digital spotlights. Welcome, Robert. Thank you so much for joining us here tonight.
Thanks for having me, Maria. It's great to be here.
It's so exciting. And I just want to put the timing in context for everybody
hmm
because we had to really schedule our timing. So I know here in Dubai, it is 8:20 in the evening. What time is it for you, Robert?
It's 18 minutes after noon here in Boston.
And it's so exciting to be able to do this because the power of technology has meant that we're able to connect with people on the other side of the world and still bring specialist speakers to our students. So once again, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Of course.
So Robert, talk to us a little bit about who you are, where you're based, and just to give us a little insight on the who is Robert Najarian when he's not an actor and choreographer?
Sure, be happy to. I am currently in Boston, Massachusetts, actually specifically Cambridge, which is right across the river, right in between MIT and Harvard. And I have an apartment here as well as a place in LA. So I am, I suppose, unironically bi-coastal. I've tried to own the bi-coastal moniker for a couple of years now, and knock on wood, it's been going pretty well. I've been a performer, actor for almost 20 years now, and a choreographer for about 15. I specialize in movement systems for performances, predominantly for stage. And then my specialty is fight choreography, which is quite fun. If you have told the 15-year-old version of me that one day I'd be making money choreographing fake fights for film and stage, I probably would have laughed you out of the building. But go figure, that's where my life has taken me. And it's been quite fun to do gigs across the country. And I've been also lucky enough to work internationally as well.
That's really exciting. What's it like to be an actor? And then what's it like to be a choreographer? And then what's it like to do both at the same time?
Mhm. Well, I have been in all of those situations, obviously doing each one independently, and then some jobs where I have been both an actor in the piece and also the fight choreographer. And I did that for one film and quite a few theatrical productions. It takes a kind of different section of my brain each time I do each thing. Even though understanding the artistic piece as a whole, whether that's on screen or up on stage, is critically important no matter what role artistically you are in during one of those endeavors, whether you're on stage or behind the scenes, part of the design team. But getting ready for a performance, yeah, I think everybody has a small level of anxiety anytime, no matter how long you've been doing it. That never goes away, and I hope it never does. It's an indicator to me that it still means a lot. But when I'm going about to start a performance in front of a live audience, I actually get a little bit more calm. Like I, it means a lot to me. I want to go out there. I want to do a good job. I want to create good art. But I've been doing it for long enough that uh, the confidence needs to take over. When I'm a choreographer, though, I go nuts when the choreography is done and I'm relying on my friends and artists to do it because I do trust them. They're great. They were cast for a reason. But when it's out of my control and there's nothing else I can do about it, I start to I start to worry more. But it always ends up being great. I don't know why I still do that. It's just I guess it's just something about releasing control of something that I care so much about that still gets me every time.
It's so exciting to see that you still get that way because I know young people think or they believe that when they're really good at something, they stop feeling that little bit of excitement or a little bit of nervous and butterflies right before performance.
Yeah, it never goes away. It's never gone away for me. And I think I said this before. When it does go away, I think I might stop because it means that it's just a job. And I've been very fortunate that I've chosen a career, or actually, I should say more appropriately, the career chose me, where I actually do enjoy it. And of course, it's more work sometimes than enjoyment, um, especially when money is involved and the business takes over. But at the end of the day, I'd rather make uh, art for performance rather than do anything else.
That's such a great place to bring me, because if we can we rewind all the way to when you were a teenager? And how did you decide that being an actor was what you wanted to be doing?
I had always wanted to perform. I'm an only child, so your audience can paint with broad strokes about that in terms of my personality. But it was very important to me to make my parents happy, and I was a source of entertainment for them. So I was always doing funny accents and doing things. And then in school, I found that my theater classes were my most enjoyable. So I always was seeking to be in a play. And then I did that always extracurricularly. My parents were very supportive of that because they saw that I enjoyed it, and I was, I guess, above, at least average or slightly above at it. And then when I went to college, the plan was for me to become an MD, a doctor, go to med school after undergraduate. So I did pre-med major, English double major, and then philosophy minor. So I was pretty heavy on the academics, but I always did theater in college as well, because it was just something I was always interested in doing. That's how I socialized, how I kind of saw the world. And then halfway through my college career, my mother passed away. And it was hard for me to take at the time. And what it did, it put into perspective the choices I had made up until that point in my life. And eventually I realized that I was following a path that was more for other people, specifically my mother, who I love very much. And I wanted to make her proud of me. But then what I realized was I couldn't take a life path that wasn't going to be fulfilling to myself. And I knew my mother would have supported me in that. So I told my father I wasn't going to med school or taking the MCATs, and he was very supportive. He said, "That's fine, but you got to do something." And the only thing I could think of that I was halfway decent at was acting. So I auditioned for my first gig right before I got out of college, and I graduated on a Saturday, and my first day of rehearsal was on a Monday. So I had one day off, and then I went right to work. And I've been lucky to have gigs ever since.
That's so great. I know that we have quite a number of our students who are either unsure about what they want to do, or feel that they want to do something, but maybe they're being directed or encouraged to go a different path. What kind of
Mhm.
advice would you give to a teenager experiencing that, seeing as you did go from one path to finding the path that you're on right now?
Mhm. Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword because I relied, and I suppose I still rely, on the advice of the people I love and what they perceive about me. You know, uh, and I certainly relied on that almost exclusively in my young age on my parents. Uh, and it was good in a way because my parents and other friends of mine, family members, were able to see things in me that I couldn't see. That they were able to see, like for example, hey, when you're on stage, I really like it when you perform. Like that was important to get that kind of feedback. If I didn't get that kind of feedback from my parents, their friends, and my family members who came to see me, I wouldn't have known probably. um, you have to balance that out with, the omnipresent desire of parents to want the best for their children.
Of course.
The best in the best in all things, right? The
Mm.
best, personally, socially, romantically, professionally, uh, and that's an important driver in any life. Um, at the end of the day, though, uh, I had to make my own decision about what kind of life I wanted to lead. Um, Strangely enough, or perhaps not strangely, uh, I, the medical thing for me actually still informs my life. At one time in my life, I got my license to be an emergency medical technician in the U.S. So I know about emergency services and first aid, and that, in a way, is a very strong component to me being a fight choreographer, because I know a lot about the human body. I know what it takes to make it hurt, and I know what it takes to make it better. So that actually informs a lot of my artistic choices when I'm asked, hey, in this moment of violence, when this person is experiencing this kind of pain, what is that like? And I have the kind of training where I can speak to the reality of that. And that's critically important in any kind of artistic endeavor where we're performing uh, to give a sense of realism for the audience. So in a way, nothing's an accident. But that being said, making the choice to pursue one thing or another, if if you're not doing it for you, if you're doing it more for someone else than for yourself, maybe those choices can happen in the immediate future, but on a longer timeline, no one's going to have to live with those choices as longer as you are.
Of course. Talk to us about what it's really like to be an actor. What we don't know that you only find out when you're in that world, especially being in LA.
Wow, it's a lot of ways to go with that question. I very much enjoy being an artist who performs. Uh, some people might say that uh, it's more artistic in one medium than another. I do not believe that's true. I believe that there's a high degree of artistry to be found in every medium, and that is no less true for performance. Um, I mean, Maria, it's fun. It's fun being an actor. It's fun. Uh, uh, I meet people, usually new people, on every gig. They're also artists trying to make a living, try to make good art, and trying to understand the world and themselves in a new way by participating in a new endeavor. So I end up having a lot of colleagues. These colleagues, more often than not, turn into friends, and that's great. I get to travel for my work, which is fantastic, not only all over the country, but in some other countries internationally, because of these colleagues who I've made and the friends that I've met. It's a great time. Something that is a component of it that I had to learn pretty quickly was I've never been the best at organizing my life. I
Mm.
had to be really good at organizing my schedule once I knew I wanted to um, pursue acting for uh, for my life's work. It's a lot of looking at the calendar and scheduling things out. Sometimes I double book myself, which is terrible, and then I got to figure that out. It takes a lot of logistical problem solving as well. Uh, and I don't know if that's what you expected when you asked that question, but I just want to underscore that it is a profession, it is a job, and it's one that takes kind of constant maintenance. There are no weekends in acting. Actually, weekends are usually the times that I work the most, uh, especially when I'm in a theater gig, because once I'm in performance, it's uh, every night except Monday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 2 shows on Saturday, and 1 or 2 shows on Sunday. So weekends, when all of my non-theater friends are hanging out, I'm going to work. And it's a lifestyle that I've gotten used to, but I don't know if it would be for everyone. It's definitely a different way to live, but I enjoy it.
So I know that a lot of our parents and a lot of our students as well that are really interested in a career like an acting career. One of the concerns that they tend to have is, will I be able to afford my lifestyle? So you talked
Mhm.
about meeting different actors or people in the arts trying to make a living. So talk to
Mhm.
us about what the myth about being an actor is income wise, and the kinds of examples that you've seen from not just your own career path, but also other actors that you have encountered over your years of experience.
I think one of the prevailing myths is that one, and uh, again, painting with broad strokes, for not only performing artists, but artists of any ilk, is that one has to be poor and suffer for one's art. That is entirely that it does not have to be that way. To say it's entirely untrue, I think that would be an untrue statement, but it certainly does not have to be that way. And for me, I had to quickly figure out how to honestly subsidize my acting career in my early career, because when you're starting out, it's unusual to get highly paid jobs, or even moderately paid jobs right off the bat. So what I personally for me was fortunate enough to find was I did go to graduate school. And let me speak to this first. When I went to graduate school for acting, it was important to me because I wanted to have the appropriate credentials just to say, like, yeah, I've studied this and I kind of know what I'm doing and talking about. That is not necessary, but it's something I wanted for me. And what I didn't realize that when I got my degree, that opened up the possibility for me to teach at university. And because I started my professional career in Boston, you can't throw a hot rock without hitting a university or college around here. And I discovered that most of the people in Boston who were actors and performers who I admired were also teachers. So it's something that I started to explore and ended up also liking very much. And my teaching informed my art and vice versa. So I started teaching at Boston University, and then had stints of teaching at Emerson College, College of the Holy Cross. I taught a graduate class at Harvard University through the American Repertory Theater. And then I was, for almost 5 years, teaching at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. So I was able to take my interest in theater and translate it into also teaching theater. And that was able to create another revenue stream for me that enabled me to have enough financial security to go out and pursue my artistic endeavors. And what I found, both in Boston and in LA and other cities I've been in, that whatever the kind of dominating industries are in that city, most actors are dabbling in those other industries at least a little bit, or taking advantage of the kind of revenue streams they can create from those industries. In LA, it's not just performing in front of a camera or on stage. There is actually a pretty good theatrical community in LA, but also voiceover. That's another thing that can happen that pays very well. There's motion capture for video games. There's other industries that need the talents of performers in order to make their product. And tapping into that is integral to any well-rounded career in performance. So what I'd say is that there's plenty of other revenue streams to grab onto that still utilize the talents of any person who wants to perform for a living.
Sounds so good. Talk to me about how you find a job. So how does an actor find their first opportunity?
I go to parties. That helps, and I say that with a little tongue in cheek, but socially, it's important. And I think anyone who's been in an industry for long enough knows that there's more than a grain of truth to that. My colleagues are my friends, and my friends are my colleagues. So knowing what's going on in a given industry is critically important. And I've found the best way to do that is, of course, there are the online forums, and I sign up for emails that tell me when casting things are. I'm a part of 3 unions, which I'm very much in support of, and the unions are very good about posting for job openings and things that are casting. But when it comes down to it, a lot of the things I hear are word of mouth, because me and my friends, we want to know what's going on, not only for our profession so that we can get jobs and make money, but also because we're interested in what kind of work is being created. And if it's work that we find really interesting, invariably we want to be a part of it. So making those kind of connections, and I mean real connections, talking to people, showing up at events that that I am interested in, that aren't like super high profile, like a reading of a play in a basement in New York City. Done that, more times than I can count. But showing up and seeing who's out there and seeing what kind of work is being produced that you enjoy invariably leads to more opportunities and just more fun times and meeting more people.
So interesting talking to you. All right, drop a few names for us. What
I
kind
can't. No,
of what would you say has been the highlight of your career so far?
a highlight. Uh, a personal highlight, professional highlight.
We're talking
This is.
professional, personal. I don't know. In the life of an
I.
actor, is there one
I
world
mean.
and not the other?
Well, and when I say personally, I suppose I mean the ones artistically that are the closest to my heart. Uh, I mean, there's so many. It's like I don't have a family of my own, and not to be super sappy about it, but the the jobs that I've had and the roles that I've had, and even the the pieces that I've choreographed, I feel like they're my babies, and it's hard to pick one over the other, because I've learned something from every one. Learned something professionally, learned something about myself. Uh, uh, and I don't know if moms and dads would disagree. I, of course, like some of my children more, a little bit more than the others, but I love them all. Uh, I suppose the one that was the the one that changed my view professionally and artistically the most, kind of changed my view about the possibilities of theater and performance, uh, was a show called Sleep No More, which was produced by the American Repertory Theater here in Cambridge when I was living here full time, and created by a group in London called Punch Drunk. And Punch Drunk had been in operation since the early 2000s, but then came over to US in 2007, 2008. And that's when I started performing with them for the first time. And they kind of kind of started the immersive theater movement, which has now taken hold internationally. And it's a thing now. And I was very, very proud to be part of the original cast, both in Boston and New York, for that show that's still going on. And it was my first time being in really such a internationally high profile show, and really enjoying it. It was great, and I'm still in touch with a lot of the artists from there. They're like my brothers and sisters. So that was an extraordinary experience. Um, other ones was, I mean, I've gotten a sword fight on stage. I can't tell you what a joy that is for someone like me. I don't know if anyone else gets a twinkle in their eye when they hear that, but being able to do things like that on stage is extraordinary. There's nothing like it.
So cool. Who would you say you work for? Because I know that young people that are thinking about finding a job, they have an idea
Mm-hmm.
that they have to work for an organization. When you're
Yeah.
an actor, who do you work for?
I work for the theater company or production company that employs me. So I've had a lot of bosses in my life. And that's another thing about this profession is that it kind of forces one to adapt and adjust to different people, different personalities, depending on what gig I happen to have. Uh, so when I am working for that person, it is my responsibility to uh, fulfill my role in the best way that I can for what they want to do. And you know, styles vary, mediums vary, right? So having a sensibility of what's appropriate in what medium becomes very important for each employer. But honestly, at the end of the day, I work for myself. I work for me. And that is another thing that I actually enjoy about being a freelance artist, is that uh, I, I do things and I pursue the work that I want to pursue. And so when I enter into a project, it's a project that I have voluntarily said, yes, I want to be a part of this project. I want to do this, rather than being assigned a project, which happens when you sign up for a company or you know an academic institution, and they say, okay, yes, you work for us now, therefore you will be working on X, Y, and Z. I'm sure for some people they you know really dig that. For me, I like to be a little bit more auto-directed.
Okay. And I know as a teacher, you said that you're also a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of skills do you use in teaching that are really enhanced because you're an actor?
That's a great question. They're so transferable, one between the other. I think it goes both ways. You know, being in front of a group of people, uh, there's a high degree of storytelling involved in teaching, creating a narrative that's easily understandable to the people who you're talking to, and generating an interest in the material. Uh, in a way, the more I talk about it with you, the more I think they're virtually identical. I'd say the one of the things that's different about teaching is that there's a higher degree of administrative work involved. I mean, at the end of the performance or class or what it is, then I have to grade my audience, which feels weird when I say it out loud. Uh, whereas in a performance, or in a film or whatever, you can just have the people watch it and it's for enjoyment. Did you enjoy it? What'd you get out of it? Great. And we leave it at that. But in terms of the skills that are needed for being a teacher and being a performer, they're very, very, very close. And take that with a grain of salt, considering I've done both.
Of
So
course.
I've had a opportunity to think about both a lot and find the resonances between the two careers.
So I know that we have young students watching this, and then we'll have students who are just about to graduate, and we might
Mhm.
even have parents watching this as well. Being a young person, the focus sometimes is really about the academics. It's about taking the right subject to apply to university.
Mhm.
If you could give some advice to a young person thinking about subject choices that would lead them into a career like yours, which ones would they be?
Uh, Honestly, this isn't meant as a deflection to the question. Anything that's of interest to them. I believe, for me, intelligent actors, well-rounded actors, knowledgeable actors are the best kind of artists to work with. And that's what those are the kind of people I've appreciated most in my career, the ones who can talk about a wide variety of subjects, deal with a wide variety of styles, and having more, honestly, life experience, a breadth of experience, just brings that to bear all the more fruitfully in any kind of endeavor. Now, that being said, there's a high degree of skill involved, and to build up one's skill, uh, uh, getting pretty good at physical activities is actually pretty darn important. Um, uh, and again, with what I do in choreography, that becomes even more important. But being able to have physical facility, whether that's through playing sports, taking dance, taking martial arts, anything that requires a degree of physical coordination is really great training for being a performer. The other flip side of that is developing the vocal instrument. So being able to produce sound that's really good. I'm not using the great words for this, but like good sound for a good speaking voice will carry far in the performing arts, especially to increase the possibility for more work, like I was mentioning before, with voiceover and whatnot. So developing the physical instrument for coordination and also for vocal production, anything that helps with that is great. And then getting used to being up in front of people and saying things. I've taken a lot of improv courses. I've taught an improv course once. Being able to come up with things on the fly is a pretty useful skill as well. But at the end of the day, pursuing things that are of the most interest to the person is the way to go. And then wanting to share that with other people is really important too. That leads to a life of teaching, to a life of performance, to a life where the rest of your life can be integrated whatever you want to do artistically, because it's all connected. It just takes a while to find out what those connections are.
So great. How has technology evolved your profession?
Uh, uh, in critical ways, I think, ways that a lot of me and my colleagues couldn't have conceived, especially now in the situation we're in our cities, where going outside and gathering in large groups is not a possibility. That we're thinking more and more about what this means, the digital connection.
Mm-hmm.
Because in all of art, I don't care what it is, performance, visual art, music, the assumption that human beings can get together and congregate has been paramount. And now that we don't have that, we're turning to technology to try to create community in a virtual way. And it's amazing to see how quickly that has happened in the last, I mean, how long have we been in this situation? For the last month or two? That the content that's being created through things like online meeting platforms, and even if it's two people just on their phones, working on a monologue or on a scene together, or playing some music together so they can hear each other and jam. That's become a very important part of the artistic process. So that's something that's been crazy cool to see happen in such a short amount of time. In terms of other types of technology, which I can't speak to terribly well, but certainly there's been in film the switch to digital and digital media, which has just kind of blown up the possibilities for things that we can present. Online streaming platforms, a perfect example, that a lot of content has been created for those, especially over the past 5 years. And that's creating more opportunities for performers. There's not only, for television, it's not only the network shows that people are going out for, but it's everything from Netflix to HBO to Hulu. Yeah.
So I know another really important question is, how do students understand how actors and choreographers get paid? So if you could, without obviously getting personal, but if you could kind of give us a range of what that would look like to a young person who has never had experience, doesn't know where to begin, and doesn't know what to expect, especially if, like you said, actors work for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Knowing what one is worth for the job that one's doing is so important. It's incredibly important. And it's tough to have a sense of that in one's early career. I certainly struggled with that for many years. The thing that helped me the most was talking to my friends, the people who I trusted, and said, hey, we're doing about the same amount of work. How much are you getting paid? People who I was comfortable having that conversation with, and who were comfortable with talking about that with me. Uh, and then after getting a sense of, okay, if I do this for this amount of time, then I should be, for this company, I should be making around this amount. And an amount that felt good to me in the city that I am living in, and how that figures out into how much I have to pay for rent and going out with my friends, and, you know, kind of doing that arithmetic. But the thing that was incredibly important to me was joining a union, because if it's just me and somebody and I'm negotiating with somebody, and I don't, maybe I'm working for them for the first time, so I really don't know how to frame the conversation. Being part of a union gives me support in my negotiating power to say, hey, here's the minimum that I am required to get for working for you for this amount of time for this job. Not only that, but the union also provides me with retirement, health insurance, these kinds of things that would be a lot more complicated if I had to set those things up for myself. So I'm obviously a union advocate. It's just nice to have somebody in my corner to know that I don't have to go through it, the business side of it, completely alone. So that way I'm able to concentrate on artistically what my direction is more for myself. But honestly, at the end of the day, it's different for every company. So knowing what kind of the capital realization is for the company, and what pool you have to work with, and the profile of the job, and what is required, is all those things are the things I have to do research on before I decide to take a job.
So I know that there's going to be students saying, "What's a union?" So because
What's a union?
we live in the part of the world where, you know, there are no unions. So talk to us,
Mm-hmm.
because I talk to our students a lot about when you're traveling abroad and when you're going back to your home country, to kind of give them an insight as to what the world of work looks like for them.
Mm-hmm.
Things like unions come up and taxes come up. Talk to us a little bit about what a union is, and the purpose of it for an actor and a choreographer.
Of course, union is a labor organization whose members work in a specific field, and so it's a bunch of workers in a certain field get together and say, hey, we are going to say that for our services, we require this minimum amount to work, and that's wages, rates, also working conditions, safe working conditions, and things like providing health insurance and retirement and all that stuff. So for unions, usually the more members you have, the stronger they are. So you can have a collective bargaining agreement with various companies. And that's true for stage actors, for screen actors in movies and television, and then for directors and choreographers as well. Um, uh, so the presence of unions, it's kind of like checks and balances. Most of the employers I have had the pleasure of working with and for are good people. They're fair. They offer a living wage and offer things that I'm able to not only be satisfied artistically, but also make a living and not be behind the eight ball, so to speak. Uh, but sometimes, for whatever reason, when there's a miscommunication between me and the person I'm working for, I'm very, very lucky that I can call up somebody in the union, an officer in the union, and say, hey, is this the agreement we have with this person? Am I being treated as equally as the other people who are working on the same job? Because for my value as an employer, as an artist, as a professional, it's important for me to know that my work is being as valued as much as other person's work on the same project.
Super great. Okay, I know we're getting close to the end of our interview. I could talk to you forever. So many
I know.
questions, so little time.
Yeah, I'm sorry if my answers have been long-winded, but you've been asking such great questions. It's
No,
hard for me
no, I just want
not
to
to keep
I
talking
want to
about it.
get the most of this interview and bring it back to our students and our parents. But if you could go back to being 14, 15, 16, what's one tip you wish an actor and a choreographer had told you that could have made that journey a little smoother for you?
Uh, there's a couple of things that are coming to my mind, but I'll go with the one that I'm thinking about at the top. Uh, that I wish somebody had expressed to me that I have enough of everything that I need. That the things that are around me are enough. And as an artist, that's become more and more apparent. That artists are really good at taking the raw materials that they have and making something really beautiful with other people. Uh, if somebody had told me that I have enough of everything, I think I would have saved a lot of time and a lot of anxiety thinking about the things that I don't have, the things that I still have yet to achieve or yet to get. That everything I have is at my fingertips and is around me right now. There's always enough resources. There's always enough money, no matter what anybody tells me, there's always enough money somewhere in some fashion. That there are enough people, you just got to look for the right people. But the one thing that there's never enough of is time. And that time is important. We got more of it than we think we do, but valuing my time, especially as my career has grown, has become more and more important. So yeah, yeah, the resources are infinite, except for time. So uh, valuing one's time and doing the things you love to do and being around the people you love to do it with.
Super fantastic. I know that you work and you do workshops as well and you teach. If we have
Mhm.
a budding, aspiring actor watching us right now, how could they participate in some of your workshops? Where would they have to travel to?
Uh, 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 Predominantly, I do workshops for American universities in the U.S. I've also done workshops in Taiwan, in London, in Canada, in Turkey. So I do travel on the invitation of my friends and colleagues. Uh, but I am yeah, still freelance across the board. So I do it at the invitations of these institutions. But I'm always looking for opportunities to travel anywhere, especially to make new friends and acquaintances.
Sounds great. Well, we hope to see you in Dubai very, very soon. I know that
Thanks.
definitely Dubai English Speaking College would love to be part of that workshop. So please do keep us posted. And I think we're going to have to bring it to a wrap. I know I have so many more questions to ask you, but I realize the time difference, and I'm going to leave it to our students. If they have any other questions, would it be okay that we reach back out to you and get you to answer some of those questions? Obviously, by email, we wouldn't expect you to do another live interview, or maybe we can. We never know. Anyone
Absolutely.
watching this right now will be like, of course she had to ask that question.
Absolutely. I'd be happy to. And thanks so much again for asking such thoughtful questions. It's been really fun for me.
So exciting. So that brings us to a wrap. Thank you so much to everyone watching our interview. That was Robert Najarian, who is an actor, choreographer, and teacher based in Boston and LA from the United States of America. It has been such a pleasure interviewing him today. If you have any questions for Robert, if you are an aspiring actor, or if you're the parent of an aspiring actor and you just want to know a little more, something that we didn't talk about today, please do feel free to reach out to me and I will be sure to send your questions along to Robert Najarian. And that brings us to a wrap. I look forward to seeing you all at our next Digital Spotlight. Stay home and be safe.